Well, I joined the army in 1942 because I was born at a very early age. I was very young when I was born, so it meant that when war broke out on September the 3rd, Sunday, September the 3rd, 1939, I was 6 days past my 17th birthday. And then I started work, and I was in a reserved occupation, which meant if I was an important job, they couldn't call you up. And I didn't really want that, because my important job was just delivering electric light bulbs to places like hospitals, big firms and that, so that they could keep going on, because the silly Germans keep sending bombers over and kept breaking these electric light bulbs, so they wanted more and more and more. So that was my job. Then afterwards they thought the war was getting a bit hairy, we better get Fred Harris to come and help us out. So we come over here, and one of my, he was no relation to me, but he became an air marshal of the Bomber Command, and his name was Harris, Bomber Harris. So I became Bomber Harris to all my friends and enemies in the army. Thank you very much for that, Paul. That's very good. And then afterwards, they decided now, first of all, they sent me to the north of England. And the reason being that he and I were in the same division, and we were sort of just motoring around North of England and Scotland, putting the Germans off the scent, because then they thought that the English were going to invade Norway. Because if Fred Harris was in, they've got to do something important. And I think that Patton was somewhere in charge. It was General Patton of the United States of America. And then afterwards they said, no, that's not quite right. So they sent us down south, broke our division up completely, and sent us seasoned veterans of the phony war to invade the northwest France, northwest Europe. And so we trained down there in a completely and utterly, it's like a concentration camp. Nobody could get into the south of England, and they certainly wouldn't let them out, because otherwise you've got these blabbermouths that tell the Germans what's going on down there.
Cardboard tents somewhere else.
That's right. And then Eisenhower and Montgomery got together with some other generals and that, and decided that they're going to invade Europe. And they were going to invade through Normandy. And I was quite happy, because I heard that Normandy had great Calvados, this stuff you drink that makes you, a very brave man. So I drank a lot of Calvados to try and make me a brave man. Okay, Charlie, take over. I'm not going to do this program on my own, anyway.
You've got more. You was in the army
okay, so
quite a long time. So
I was in now the 7th Armoured Division, which is the Desert Rat, the Jabur, which was General Montgomery's. Thank you for that interlude. Was General Montgomery's favourite division, because they've been all through North Africa, come up through Italy, up to Anzio, and then sent home to prepare for the invasion of Europe. So they come in. So they sent the invasion forces over into Europe, and then a few days, because they had to form a bridgehead with the assault troops, the real heroes of the war. They had to sort of face all the bullets, attract all the bullets. And then when the Germans used all their bullets up, they sent us in, because we was an armoured brigade with tanks, and we had to work in a bigger bridgehead. And then we finally went round and round and round, clearing up pockets of Germans. There were some nasty sort of people on a place called Mount Pecan. which kept firing down on us, and we had to evade that. And then there was the Falaise, the city of Falaise in Normandy, where Montgomery and Patton, with Eisenhower in command, decided that they would close this gap because inside it was a German army. So we went round, tried to close the gap, but the Americans didn't come quite through. So lots of the Germans escaped. Anyway, they decided they got enough in the bag and they couldn't feed them, so that'd do something. Then we broke out of Normandy through the town of Rouen, where, what's her name? Who was burnt at the stake.
Whose name?
You mean whose name? Sound like Joan of Arc,
Oh,
Maid of Orleans. That's where she was burnt at the stake in Rouen. And we drove out of there, and then we're facing the open country trying to chase after the Germans. So we come to Amiens, we came to the Seine, and the thing is that being a reconnaissance engineer, we had to go up first to see what was going on, and then we came to obstructions like mines or bridges or ditches that had to be sort of overcome by the troops. We had to make them usable for transport to go over, because the creed in the army is follow the engineer. The Royal Engineer, where the Royal Engineer goes, who clears all the obstacles in the way, an army can follow. So they put silly me up front to try and find these obstacles, which we did overcome. And then we went on and on and on chasing the Germans. Then we got into Belgium, and where we were greeted very, very well, and going to all sorts of, like Brussels. Because at Brussels we had to stand and wait for him, because he was in the Royal Army Service Corps, which is the people who come up with the rations, with the petrol, with the food and all that. And we can't operate unless we have a lot of petrol, a lot of food. What kept you?
I don't know.
You do speak English, don't you?
Yeah,
Go
yeah.
on, say-
Having to brew up, I suppose.
Brew up,
Brewing
yeah.
up.
That's all he thinks of, making tea for himself and not for us.
That's what the British Army
Right. So we were
lived on.
round in Brussels for quite a while, I suppose. And then Montgomery said, right, the Royal Army Service Corps has done its duty, gentlemen. They brought up all the supplies. Let's get on with it, go. So off we come, and our next port of call is into this delightful little country of yours called Holland, Netherlands, or whatever it is. And the people of Holland were wonderful. They could not be more hospitable to welcome us in. So we did our best to relieve their sufferings, and finally managed to conquer. We went through somewhere to the east of here. My brother was in the Canadian Army, so he dealt with the Scheldt Estuary coming out that side. And I think we went a little bit to the right of you and going up. And having gone through places like Eindhoven, Tilburg, the other places, Tilburg, Susteren, they decided they're going to lessen the war by dropping troops in Arnhem. So they sent us to Nijmegen, just outside of the canal and the Rhine. And we watched all the brave paratroopers going up, being dropped, and we could not get through because apparently the wireless communications between the paratroopers and us was non-existent. They got the wrong, I don't know, wrong wireless sets or something, or they didn't work. And every morning I had to go out on road patrol with an officer to go to see if the way through, was safe enough for the army to go. And we kept getting shelled and shelled and shelled. And we had to go fall back and sort of say, they're still over there. We knew where they were, but we wouldn't sort of go and attack them because we had lots and lots of people there. We had went up there, the 11th Armoured Division, we had the 7th Armoured Division, we had the Guards Armoured Division. There was a good troop. They were going to go. The Guards Armoured Division would go in. We had a real sort of army on our own. We could go into Arnhem if only we could get over this bridge, which they call the Bridge Too Far, from Nijmegen into Arnhem. And in the end, they decided that we couldn't go. Having sacrificed all those brave paratroopers in Arnhem, which lots of them came back, of course, by swimming over the canal, they decided that we would now go into Germany, switch right, go through the Grave Forest, and then try and attack the Germans through over the Rhine. Now, I think I crossed a place called Zankton. Then off we go, chasing. The weather was closing in by the Christmas of 1944. It was really cold. Everything was frozen over, snow was coming around. And the best dressed people were the Germans, and we could see them, all these white coats on the Russian front coat, we hadn't got. So we shivered, trying to fight them.
Were you still in your summer clothing? Or did you
No, we had our just ordinary khaki. There was two dresses, khaki, which was just normal wool, or desert combat stuff, which was the thin stuff. So anyway, what happened then? Oh, I got sent back to, we got stopped on the German border, and I got sent back to Brussels again for a rest period for 3 days over Christmas and to New Year. But on the way back, we got stopped at a stupid place called the Ardennes. And the Americans got out and said, "We're in trouble." I said, "You heard of Fred Harris, have you?" I said, "No." And I said, I can't do anything here because I've got to get back to my own unit because we're in the line just up there. So they let us through. And of course the Ardennes was a big mistake for Hitler because that was his last thrust. He was trying to get to places like Antwerp to get a port to bring in supplies to feed his army. But the weather brightened up, the Air Force was able to operate, stop the advance of the Germans, and so then we were able to advance into Germany through and through. So we're going to various towns and villages. We met up with the Russians. They were building bridges, and but they were very friendly to us at this particular time. And then we said bye-bye, we'll see you later on. And then we got to a place called Harburg. Now Harburg is the other side of the Elbe from Hamburg. And this is one of our big objectives, to take Hamburg, because there's also port facilities there. But it would be declared an open city because it had been bombed to hell. Everything inside was absolute ruins. We didn't want to cause any more damage, and all we wanted them to do was just give up. But they wouldn't surrender, so we started building a bridge just further down the River Rhine, the Elbe, and they stepped very unkindly with shelling us while we were doing this. Then we completed the bridge. They decided to give in. So they called Fred Harris up again to go across this bridge, where we put sappers on board. They are sappers of the engineers, Royal Engineers. We had to drop them off. They all want to get in the act, and we dropped them off at piers so they could go underneath to examine to see if there's any explosive, if there were disarming explosives, because they're going to blow the bridge up. Got the other side, and the officer said, "We are the first people in Hamburg." And I thought, yabba dabba do, so what? And I just closed all my back hatches down, just had my visor open, and I went down a bomb hole, because the RAF was trying to bomb this bridge out of existence, and all they could hit was the approaches to the bridge, not the bridge itself. So I went down a bomb hole, so this tank behind me had to get out his tow ropes to drag me out of it. Behind him was the army trying to get through. So he dragged me out. I went round again, and I went down the second bomb hole. I was so conscious of trying to find out where he went. And he had to get his tow ropes out again to drag me out.